Hello and welcome back. This is MC1 Gamer. Happy New Year once again. I'm providing a little bit of a response video to what Anthony had put out just apparently overnight in response, kind of a little rage and rant video about some of the rumors that have come out prognosticating what's coming in for 9th edition fantasy in the coming new year. And I just wanted to respond to this because I've seen a lot of these rumors. I've read a lot of these rumors. These rumors have been out there. There's some new stuff. There's a new twist on it. But I just wanted to give a little perspective and tell everybody, don't panic. Don't panic. Don't sell off your armies. Don't jump ship. There's certainly a lot that we still don't know. Could some of this stuff be true? Sure. Could all of it be true? Sure. I don't think that this is the full story, and I really wanted to give you some perspective. And another article came out which substantiates some of what I've been saying. And again, of course, you take it with a grain of salt, and probably maybe a whole bottle full of salt. Various sites, they don't always have the full story, and sometimes they throw this stuff out there with whatever they've heard. And we see posts on Warseer and Daka and wherever with just whatever little snippets of information people have been able to get. And one of the things I've done, and I guess the reason why I was given a kind of vote of confidence as the resident rumor monger with the Rat Award for 2014 was because I kind of aggregate this stuff. I don't have any secret information into GW, but I gather it up, and I think if you do that, if you don't just look at one particular article or one particular site or one particular thread of conversation, which could be very skewed, you may have a different perspective of how things are looking. And I'm going to start by saying, and then I'm going to read through this article that was recently posted on Fayette 212, which is a little bit more reasonable, and saying that, again, the rumors have been out there that 9th is going to be something radically different, that there would be a merging of various books, the fact that there would be faction reductions we've already seen with End Times, that End Times would have a tremendous impact on where 9th is going. That we could potentially see some loss of armies, certainly loss of characters, and then that rules for 9th could go in a completely different direction. But would it not be Warhammer Fantasy? Well, if you look at all the previous editions of Warhammer Fantasy, there have been radical changes, but it's still fundamentally the same game. Blocks of units, characters, war machines, creatures, monsters, whatever. It's still going to be that. But in a nutshell, what I see and what was rumored when I first got back into the hobby over a year ago was that there would be an enhancement, an add-on, a side game, in addition to a restructuring of the large unit game that we're playing. There would be a side game, more of a skirmish game, and we've also seen a lot of the changes both in 40k and with fantasy that kind of make them a little bit more similar. I hope that they're not going in the direction where it's kind of like Warhammer Hordes, where they can actually be played side by side on the same table, or they're not even side by side, but together on the same table. But there are some similarities, and one of the reasons is that GW's entire game plan is to try and make the games more accessible to new players. They really don't care about us, the old guard. They don't care about the competitive scene. They don't care about the organized circuit. Get that out of your head. We are not of concern to them. They want to continue to have an ongoing lifeblood of gamers, and as the old guard dies off or leaves or runs for the hills, sells off their armies, or just loses interest, they want to have a situation where new players, young, little Timmy walks into a gaming store and says, "Dad, I want to buy that dragon," or "Dad, I want to buy that huge monstrosity," whatever it is. And they don't have to then invest $1,000 into an army, have it painted up, because they need all these minimal requirements on units and structure and books and whatever. They want to be able to sell an edition and sell a couple of boxes worth of models to a new player, and if they want to stop there, they're fine. They can throw their stuff down on the table and they can play. It's one of the reasons why 50% Lords and Heroes came into play. Not because they want Hero Hammer. They want to be able to have larger characters and higher point models that they can reintroduce, dominate the table, and be able to have a larger point cost, so that you don't have as much of a need to get all the rest of your army in more expensive model units. You can have a lower barrier of entry to getting an army on the table for even the smallest of Warhammer Fantasy games. Now, that may seem counterintuitive. Why would you want to do that? You want to sell more models. But what GW wants to be is they want to be the higher end elite of this community, of the wargaming community. They want to have their models be, more expensive, higher profile, higher higher cost, less frequently seen, more of a collector type situation. And we've seen that with some of their limited edition releases, which is something that I would hate to see, but it seems to be the trend. This could be the case where it could drive up the cost, drive up the secondary market. But their whole disposition is provide less of a means for people to join in the game, and if they want to expand their interest and expand their hobby and spend more money, have at it. And this all falls in line with this theory. It all fits with what I've been hearing for well over a year now, and seeing on Warseer, you're hearing from people like Darnock, who is one of the best relays of information that I've seen, and there's a few of them. Hearing from Reef, hearing from a lot of different sources, and again, I've got about a half a dozen sources that I look at on a regular basis. And I look at FAD 212 and Bale of Lost Souls, and I take that stuff with a grain of salt. And some of that stuff there's some truth in some of these rumors, and some of them are just ridiculously out there. So you just gotta have to relax. Again, don't panic. Here's what it looks like. This is what I see. And I'm gonna read through this, so you can. I'm also gonna provide the link so you can go and read through it yourself. But it seems that there's going to be this skirmish game that's going to take place in alongside of the regular strategy game, the larger strategy game, the larger unit game. So that's what we're hearing about and we're seeing more about. Are we seeing stuff that might be more round base oriented? Yes. But there's also going to be a means for units to rank up. So there'll be a combination of them. And I reported that way back when I had this video that said, is this the potential future for Ninth? And again, those were old rumors, and some of this stuff still stands. But this is what it looks like. You're going to have this skirmish game, which is a smaller faction game, smaller volume of units, clearly going to involve less smaller characters and smaller blocks, and not even blocks, skirmishing type units that you then can build up and then play in the same universe, in the same world as those skirmishing units. And End Times is going to have a tremendous fluff effect, story effect on the world. There'll be these high centers of warp, like in the warp for 40K, high centers of chaos and fusion, where it's just going to be a free-for-all. Factions that are on a larger scale, like Mordheim, I guess, or on a larger scale, these barely surviving groups that are in larger chunks of groups of the old army books, Empire, ogres, and dwarves merging together, the elves combined, cats and dogs sleeping together, whatever. The idea being that's what you're going to see in the faction game, and that will probably carry over to some degree with the unified books in the larger strategy game. But the strategy game is going to be doable and is going to exist. That's what I believe, and that's what I see from these rumors. I believe that some of the latest rumors have been just snippets of a greater game. And I don't mean a greater game by a better game, just a bigger game with more options. So let me get to the reading of this. This was a follow-up to the post that was put up yesterday, also again on FAT 212, and it says, important information about the changes to 9th edition. So I'm going to read this verbatim. Yesterday we had a "you better sit down" moment with the rumors coming off of Warseer 9th edition is changing, and the End Times are a catalyst for these changes in the background and the future of the game. However, it's not just the background that is changing. Releases and how they come about are about to be changed. Armies from 8th edition, from the End Times, and future releases will be valid, leaving no one out. As always, these are still considered rumors. The source is stepping in to reveal some insight to the new changes that are coming, to help alleviate and correct some misconceptions with yesterday's rumors about the massive changes coming to 9th edition Warhammer Fantasy. Take your time with these, as there's a lot to absorb. Also, I want to thank the sources that are stepping in here. All right, so what they're saying is let me give you some confirmation. The setting is completely true. The setting being completely overhauled is true. That's what they're saying. The concept of huge chunks of the world in a sea similar to the warp from 40K is going to be true in fantasy. Again, according to this source. Faction reduction to 6, also true. So this again, may just be for the skirmish-oriented game. We don't know if it's just 6 for the larger game, for the actual larger unit size game as we see it with modifications. Okay, how it interacts with the current rules. 9th edition takes place after the Sundering that's brought about from the End Times. So we know, we've heard for a while that End Times is eventually going to end, and it will have a dramatic and a profound impact on where the game goes from there. And this supports that. So continuing. So for the purposes of compatibility, you can use your 8th edition hardback book. Let me say that again. You can use your 8th edition hardback book, representing a section of the culture that hasn't been horrifically changed by the End Times, recognizing it will have the same drawbacks of using a dated book that are experienced elsewhere. But again, that doesn't mean it's not still part of the fluff. Okay, you can use End Times rules, concepts representing a section that is still being torn apart. So End Times will still be there. You'll still be able to use the combined books and certain rules on a larger scale. And then you can use new post-End Times rules to represent what is current. All right, all the books, again, with the caveat that older books may not be optional for the new core rules, but truthfully, the core rules aren't changing wildly, like 6th edition. 5th edition for 40K. They're really more just being tidied up, 8th edition, with a brand new setting. And they're designed to be compatible. So that's really what we're looking at. Can you use your 8th edition, big red rule book as it is now with the End Times book, and perhaps as alongside with all the army books alongside of the newer version, with understanding that maybe you don't even care about the skirmish rules? Sure, yes, you can. You can do it right now. You could say, hell with End Times. I don't want to play that. I'm going to still continue to play 8th edition rules. But if you want to buy into 9th edition, it's really going to be kind of a compilation of this with some adjustments. That's what I've been hearing. That's what I think a lot of the reliable sources have been saying. That's what I think you should be buying into, me personally. If I were to put money down on it, I'd be putting more money down on that. Okay, so continuing on. Expect armies to have fewer units in their core books, which will be heavily focused on the fluff for where they are now. What they've been doing in the centuries immediately following the Sundering, so there's going to be a time gap, it's a time jump after the End Times is completed. This will create a more balanced pool as they will be rapidly produced and released, considering a scale even somewhat faster than what we've had for 40K these past few years. That's pretty good. I don't mind that. I mean, anything that supports the overall hobby and will allow for new releases and continued addressing of the hobby and focus by GW on Warhammer Fantasy in whatever its format is not such a bad thing. As long as we have something along the lines of the game we play now, if there's some major changes, I think we can all live with that. Some people won't be able to, but for the most part, I think we'll be able to live with that because we've seen drastic changes over the course of the various editions, and people come and go, but there's still been a Warhammer Fantasy. Okay, so furthering, these will be expanded on with supplements, not intended as money grabs. Well, I don't buy that, but as I'm sure that they will be received by the majority of your readers, me included, but more as guided hands to acknowledge deficiencies in books or even global meta changes. The first time that that Games Workshop will be openly acknowledging things that need changes. So that's pretty good. Maybe these will be kind of like a quasi-white dwarf where they show updates and addressing FAQs and really engaging the customer base. This is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. Okay, it may mean that this is a game in flux, a game that is constantly evolving. But that's some of the strengths that we have seen, and a lot of people have commented on when it comes to, for instance, Warmahordes or other game systems, even FFG, Fantasy Flight Games. They really are very involved in their community. And they do provide updates periodically, and they've shown that they listen to their community. There are other games that do this, that will engage with their community, and we've not seen that from Warhammer before. I mean, from Games Workshop before. Privateer Press is another great example. So, could this be something really good? I think this could be a very good thing, where maybe it's not that we have a dialogue necessarily with GW, which is what we want, but maybe it's just at least they address things and expand on things and try to show what they mean. Any kind of explanation that's being dictated on a regular basis, so we can see further into the mind of the rules writers and what they intend, really can only help the game. And if unfortunately the downside is that if they still use the same quality control that we've seen in the past, it might just open up, more cans of worms. But we'll have to see that. Well, let's have a little bit of faith. This is not something that we've seen, at least on a fully invested scale by GW in a very long time. So that's how I feel about that. I think that's a good thing. Okay, now let's continue. These units will typically get White Dwarf treatments, heralding the release in hardback of all the new units from the previous months. Nothing we haven't seen already. For a new setting expansion, which will pit several of the races together, representing a collision. Okay, great. As these expansions are not permanent in the world, so too will these models not be. Okay, well, that's unfortunate. This is going to be the collector thing. They are intended to only get one template injection mold life run, and the same as the books will be printed only in one hardback, then delayed paperback. Okay, well, this is something that bothers me. This is one of the biggest things that bother me. It's one of the reasons why I ditched HeroClix. One of the reasons why I was concerned with certain collectible type aspects of certain games that I really like. If you don't get in quick, you don't get. And if you don't get in quick and you want and you need, the secondary market dramatically increases the price, and you might even have the increased price from the get-go because things will sell out, and you may not have the opportunity to get something in the first release. Now, the good thing is that there might be paperback releases down the line, so you can at least get rules. But the models selling out fast and then becoming a collector's situation on the secondary market, that's something I can't stand, and I don't like this aspect. And that's something that would seriously concern me, because that's going to drive up the price, and it's going to make a situation where even if you get the models, do they exist? Are they then filtered out after a period of time? One of the things I can't stand, again, about HeroClix, as much as I love that game, 2 years down the road, in order to help continue the investment of players into the game, they phase out those models from tournament play, and I don't want to see that in any other game. I want to. Yes, you can keep it. You can have your box of toys and play with them as much as you want. I still have a huge box of HeroClix stuff that my son and I play with on occasion. I've gotten him in, helped him with his math. But do I want, if I want to go into a game store and I can't use that, that bothers me. And it's nice that certain game stores have, the legacy items that are allowed in certain at certain games. But if you want to if you're a tournament player and you want to be competitive, you can't play that. You can only play it on certain local type scenarios, and that's a huge limitation. And if you even can get the models now, and you're expecting that you're going to be paying exorbitant prices, if you can even get them, that's a big problem, because people are going to do grabs. They're just like what has been said in the past. If there's going to be limited runs on these, just like we see with the End Times books, suddenly we're going to see people snatching them up, throwing them up on eBay, and that's probably what we're going to see if this is true. So hopefully it isn't, but I would be surprised. They will, of course, remain legal throughout all of 9th. They will just be more limited eventually. The same as End Times models will not be available forever. The same as XYZ models will no longer be available, just with a shorter lifespan than previously experienced. I mean, you can't get Albion models anymore, but that campaign was before people whined on the internet, so I guess that's why no one's complaining. I don't know, that's an opinion there, but based on what the situation is, where they're going to phase things out over the course of time, and will they be usable? Well, at least for 9th, and if they do come out with, say, a 10th, then they may phase out even more stuff. So what they're doing is they're going to be changing. This is very similar to what I see with HeroClix. So this is what he's trying to express. I hope this isn't true, but it could very well be. Could it mean that you might have some generic models that you'll be able to use throughout the editions? Probably. Will it mean that this is just going to be a situation where the old guard, people who have bought up big, swaths of, several armies, are then going to have to still be incented to buy more stuff? Probably. From a business standpoint, I can understand that, but I just don't like that model. So that's one of the biggest concerns I have about this. Okay, so continuing on reading. This will allow for more new models. As contrary to common belief, the storage and rejuvenation of these templates takes a lot of resources, which can be instead dedicated to new ones. I don't care about that stuff. I'm not concerned about how long they can preserve their molds and whether it costs anything to them. I think it's ridiculous. I think it is a money grab, and it is a situation where they're going to force people to continue to reinvest in the hobby if they want to continue at it. And look, from a business standpoint, fine, it makes sense. It works for others. I don't like it. but I'm not going to race for the hills on this either. On the topic of round bases, the latest version I saw used round bases, but units had the option of ranking up to receive the typical bonuses. This falls very much in line with what I had seen in the earliest rumors I've seen about Fantasy of ninth edition, where it would be a skirmish game on a low level, and then as you built up in points, it would make sense to rank up in unit structure that we see now, and that this would be something that would carry over to both versions of the game. And it would have advantages like we see now with rank bonuses and whatnot. So, okay, fine. If we have both the option, great. Nothing stops you, and in many ways you're encouraged to maintain unit formation for the entire game. But you don't have to. Note that throughout all of Warhammer Fantasy, changing with depth was an option. It's just rarely seen. Well, to certain degrees. Some units are skirmishers, and then they rank up when you attack. Some units are skirmishers and could rank up if they wanted to, but they tended to be too expensive and it would be cost prohibitive to do so. I don't know. But I imagine this is going to be much more common, so that you have the capability on either version of the game or within both versions of the game to do ranks and to just skirmish up. So to summarize, you can skirmish, but it's in your interest to rank up for different reasons, like a shield walling before a charge, for instance. You can ordinarily always hold a formation and move the way we're all used to. Okay, fine. So he goes on to explain. This will be a very big change. It's not because GW doesn't care about its old players. I don't believe that. It just wants to attract new ones. That I do. I don't believe they care about the old players. I do believe that they care vastly more about the new player base, and this is all they're focusing on. So yes, they want to be able to, as people age and as they 10, 20 years into the hobby, they're still incented to spend more money, but they want to create a system that is completely friendly to new people coming into the game. And as long as we can get a marriage between those two, I'll be happy, or happy enough that I will obviously still continue to play. It's not to fill a void that will come from the fading of Lord of the Rings, which will remain in stores and will be supported for a long time due to an agreement with New Line Cinemas. I believe that completely. It's just a very fresh look at the game that hasn't changed dramatically in how it's played since the dawn of the game and the company. Again, I agree with it will give everyone the opportunity and hopefully inspiration to do something new, but without invalidating everything from the past. It's an opening room for creativity, not closing doors. All right, so there's some stuff I can understand there. Yes, the Army books will eventually feel too out of date to play, but that's the same with any new edition. And the new Army books will typically allow people to recreate what they're used to. It just might be the most effective thing they could do with their new book. The new factions are basically the opposite of Warriors of Chaos, but good the way Chaos Marines are the opposite of Space Marines, but evil in terms of broad tropes. I really hope this doesn't spawn some kind of debate about the morality of Space Marines. That's again his opinion. I could see that point, but that's just that's just a tangent. Lastly, nothing stops you from just playing 8th and ignoring 9th the same way some people ignore End Times. Again, that's what I said earlier. Just understand that unlike Storm of Chaos, which was a post-production looked at as an alternative timeline where the clock was turned back to right before it took place for the purposes of setting, the End Times are real and 9th will begin where it left off. This is what I have been saying and what I have been reading from the beginning. Everybody who has said that End Times is just Storm of Magic, again, this supports that fact. This is where I've been getting that from. All those people who ripped into me or gave me grief about it or even said some pretty nasty things, and I don't want to name names, but I banned a couple of those sons of bitches for that stupidity. And you're gonna eat crow. I said you were gonna eat crow, and you know what? I hope you get some mustard with that, because this is what I think is the case. 9th edition is End Times and post End Times. It is 8th edition modified, and that's what that's what we have. This is not Storm of Magic. I really feel that that some of these changes could be really good. We'll have to wait and see. Some of them I'm not so sure about, but again, we'll have to wait and see. But from the beginning, I've said we will have to wait and see. Don't sell your armies. Don't run for the hills. If you want to be cautious about it and be careful about purchasing new stuff, buying into new armies, buying into End Times, I don't blame you. That would be prudent, in my opinion. But if I was, one of these talking heads standing on a financial, video where You had scrolling, stock prices rolling across me, and all, at the bottom, and a scroll, and all these big monitors behind me, and I was telling you about investing in companies and selling, and and holding and whatnot. If I was that guy, I would say hold your armies. Maybe don't buy into new armies. Maybe update the armies you currently have if there's things you really want and enjoy the way the game is right now. If you really like End Times, buy into it. Go buy the stuff, go buy the books. If you're not really sure, or if you want to be more cautious, don't sell your armies. Maybe paint up the stuff that you currently have. That's what I'll be doing. And be able to use it in a variety of different game settings, whether it's Regiments of Renown, or whether it's the occasional Mordheim game, which I really look forward to doing as well. But don't ditch just because you've heard these rumors. Your armies may be changing. The list may be changing, just like any other edition change that has happened in the past, where some units are more viable, some units are less. New things are introduced, new rules are introduced, new ways of playing is introduced. But for the most part, these armies still are going to be usable, and just in different ways. And granted, certain swaths of it may no longer be the kind of things you may want to put on the table, and there may not be rules for them. But right now, it looks like it's all going to be usable, at least for the foreseeable future, just with various different changes and options. And there'll be new ways to play Warhammer that are going to be introduced as well. This is what I believe. So that's what I suggest. I suggest everybody chill and relax, and then let's all wait and see. What is this going to have as far as an impact on competitive play? It could have a lot of impact on competitive play. I think we're going to see much more comping, because we're going to need to, because things are going to be different. Are we going to see this skirmish game? Maybe we'll see a competitive version of this skirmish game. That would be great. I think that would be very cool, actually. But are we going to see a disappearance of Warhammer Fantasy, the big, tabletop strategy game with large block units? No, I said that before. I'm saying it again. Put that put that money in the bank. The fact that there are going to be changes, just like in every other edition, that this will also level out, and all our blood pressures will go down, and we'll all be able to enjoy whatever format the game is going forward. But I don't see this as Warhammer Fantasy is gone. It is completely going to change 100%. It's just going to be different. So there you have it, and everybody have a great day.